When I first moved into this house, there was this tough shed structure here in the backyard that was perpetually getting infested with bees. It was literally every 6 months we'd have to call people out to get the bees taken care of, and, then they'd come right back. So to solve this problem once and for all, my go-to contractor suggested we get rid of the structure, pour down a real concrete slab, and build something a little better on top of it. That project happened last year, and he got a little carried away, and instead of just building a shed, wound up building something that kind of looks a bit more like a miniature version of my house. But for a while I wasn't quite sure what to do with the place, until recently I got the crazy idea to actually put a darkroom back here. There isn't any good sewage nearby, but there are some solutions for that. But at least water supply is available via these hose spigots that can be rerouted. So, going to do a little tour of this space and show you what it's all about. So, this space is actually divided into two sides. One side has a little door over here, and it's going to be a kids' playroom one day when the kids are old enough to actually want to come back here by themselves. And the other side has a full-size door, and that's where the darkroom's going to go. So I'll show you what's going on with the project so far. So if we come inside, it's kind of a little echoey in here right now. Space is not actually that big. There's one wall here that's about 9 feet across, and another wall here that's about 6 feet across, plus the nook where the door is. So, and the ceiling's pretty tall. So the plan for this room is this is going to be the wet side. As you see, I already have one of the sinks here. This is a Delta TRP The Sink 2, I believe. This one is going to have water running into it. Probably just a cold tap for now, since anything hot needs temperature control, and I might just handle that some other way. And next to it is going to be another sink using up the remainder of the wall that hasn't arrived yet. On the other side, where you currently see this big bunch of storage shelves and some leftover paint cans from the project, is going to be the enlarger table. And I'm recording this now because some of the real construction in here to put in the plumbing and the table is going to kick into gear tomorrow. Also, there's a window here that's going to need to be covered up, as well as this skylight near the ceiling. Also, a few other random knickknacks here. This box contains light-proof fan and vents that are going to be used to provide some insulation for the room, which is very important. And over here are the water filter that I'm probably going to have put in. Obviously, this all needs to be cleaned up, probably today. And yeah, this is what's going to become the darkroom space. So this is the enlarger that I decided to get for my darkroom project. When I was trying to think of what kind of enlarger I wanted, I was pretty sure I wanted to have one that would pretty much last me forever. So that meant that I wanted to make sure I could enlarge 4x5 and that I had a color head, because I might want to do color someday, and it's also useful as a way to not need to deal with contrast filters for multigrade paper. So I did a little research, and it came down to either a particular model Durst or an Omega. The Durst was maybe a little easier to get in some places, and the Omega easier to get closer to new, but ultimately this is one purchase I probably got way earlier than I needed, because I was a little worried about being able to actually get it in a reasonable time frame. These things you pretty much have to buy with either a long lead time if you want them new, or luck of the draw for used. And The moment I found one that I could actually go ahead and order, I just went ahead and pulled the trigger. This particular one is, actually, it's right here. It's the LPL 7452L, which is actually the non-US model number for the Omega 4550 XLG. As it turns out, this was a little bit easier to find than the Omega branded one. Pretty much the same, so it works. Actually wound up getting it from Canada. So this thing is enormous. Here's the baseboard down here, the column, the enlarger head, which you can see right here, and this whole thing fully extended is probably 4 or 5 feet tall, which is kind of ridiculous. I probably will never be extending it all the way, but this enlarger should probably last me forever. As you can see, if you look closely down here, I have one lens mounted on it so far. I have a few more lenses coming. This particular one is an 80mm that I'll be using for medium format. I also have a 50mm eventually arriving, plus 150. So I should be good for all formats. Just get a couple looks on the sides of the head. Here is the lever for that. Here are the color adjustments, the dials and vents on the side. This whole massive carriage goes up and down. And down here we have the power supply. Just for kicks, I do actually have it plugged in, so I'm going to turn it on. Take the lens cap off. And if I shut the lights off in the room, I don't actually have a negative carrier in there right now, and there is some light in the room, so it doesn't actually project that well. But if I go ahead and grab a negative carrier, let's say 6x6, get that inserted, closed, so you can sort of see how big the projection actually is with this thing only about halfway on the stand. So let's turn the lights on and shut it off for now. Obviously I'm going to have a timer on here. If you look at the back, you can sort of see this thing doesn't run its mains power through the timer. It has a separate cord that you run to the timer, which is probably a good thing. So I also have some accessories that came with it. If we go over here, it didn't actually ship with negative carriers, but I decided to get negative carriers for pretty much every format I could ever see myself wanting to enlarge, at least for now. That's 35mm, 645, 6x6, 6x7, and of course 4x5. I'm not sure yet whether or not I want to get glass carriers. I think it depends on how much film warping I wind up running into during the process of using this. I'm thinking of getting them, but I'm not yet sure which formats I'm going to bother with. Over here, just a random grain focuser, some tools and tidbits that came with it, extra enlarger bulbs, and some additional lens boards for the lenses that I don't have yet. I also am going to be using a timer, obviously, with this, which I don't have yet, but yeah, this is the most important piece of equipment that's going to be going in the darkroom. So there's one last piece of equipment that arrived today that I figure I might as well take out of the box and show off. So this is a Analyzer Pro from RH, and what this is it's a timer for an enlarger, but also a exposure meter of sorts for an enlarger. The idea with a device like this is that you don't actually have to do a guessed test strip for every single print to get the exposure right, or at least get close enough. So I've already opened the box and removed the packing material, so I'll just take the pieces out and show them off. So this is the main unit itself. On the front, there's where the sensor plugs in and the foot switch. And on the back is where you plug it into the wall and where you connect the safe light and the enlarger. Now, one thing about it I find kind of annoying, if you'll notice, those plugs for the safe light and the enlarger are basically the female version of a pretty standard power cord. Unfortunately, every actual enlarger is going to have a normal plug on it. Same with the safe light. So what they actually did is they included in the box a couple of plugs that they actually expect you to cut the plug off the end of the cord of your enlarger and or safe light and attach this plug instead. Well, there's absolutely no way I'm cutting the plugs off of my expensive enlarger, so I just wound up ordering some adapter cables that will be here in a few days, so I can't really test this meaningfully right now. But let's just see what else is in the box. Okay, power cord, the manuals. There's the manual for the item. It's the calibration manual that tells you how to calibrate it. Stouffer's sensitivity guide. When I looked in here, there were some filters of sorts in there. Of course, that's a brand name I associate with microwavable food at the grocery store, and the manual itself. Also, here is the sensor. Which I will attempt to open one-handed because I'm holding the camera in the other hand. There's a little paper that comes with it, and there's the sensor itself. And finally, this technically was separate from the box itself, but this is the foot switch for triggering it hands-free. So that's it. I feel like I should probably try to plug this in just to show that it powers up. Just take a second to open up this cord. So go on the back, put it in, take the cord, plug it into the wall, and let's flip it on. And it starts up. Obviously, I can't do much more testing until I hook up the sensor and connect it to the enlarger, but it's a good start, so I'm really excited to start using this piece of equipment.